23. So we ready?
Yes.
Welcome to day 23, media availability. We've had a good discussion again on the floor. I think we're probably at this moment, if you look at it, we're about as close to halfway as we can get. So halfway through the session, and I think we've had a fairly productive first half. So why don't we go ahead and open up for questions? Any burning questions today?
Do you have any concerns about this Class A bill?
Again, we looked for Senator Sandel to be here, but I've looked at the bill, and the bill doesn't authorize anything. It authorizes studies. And so what it allows is for people to study it. And if the studies come out, and I don't think there's probably a more regulated industry than that industry, and if their studies come out and allow the waste to be stored there, it probably is okay.
So you're essentially sending a signal that if Energy Solutions goes through this process, you're there for them.
Yeah, that's right. And
yeah.
Depleted uranium, it sounds like a really interesting name.
Yeah.
But my understanding is it's the bullets. And so you pick up a bullet, you're holding depleted uranium. And there's a whole bunch of them stored in toilet. And so I think it's responsible for us to try to take care of those. And it'd be a lot better to store them properly than just to leave them in toilet. So.
What about waiting though for a bill like this until the State Department that oversees the safety of these projects completes their analysis? Why not wait and then decide?
I was actually in a meeting with them and the governor and the speaker, and the indication we got was they wanted a policy decision before they move forward. So they're looking for a policy decision and kind of a chicken and the egg. So we either needed to give them policy go ahead to look at it, or they weren't going to spend the time. And again, it's cost a lot of money to do these studies, and so I think they wanted a policy decision. They started the process but didn't want to continue on until they had a policy decision.
How crucial is that piece that the DOE will take over management of the cell? Do you have a bill without that?
I think that was a requirement, so
yeah.
that's critical. Okay. I think along with that were the studies, and along with that, I think the substitute today actually there's different taxing rates that they're charged, and they're at the highest taxing rate that we have.
So I take it this is broadening the base.
Good comment. So,
Senator Davis, could you explain your comment on Ion 2?
Yeah, my Ion 2. I don't like to react just to NIMBY, not my backyard issues. We have that waste. We're shipping some of our radioactive waste now to Washington. So we're actually shipping it out and accepting other waste, low-level waste, and they're accepting low-level waste as well. Is this a NIMBY issue, or is it really a health and safety issue that we should be looking at? And I voted to allow the bill to go forward simply because I want to make sure of what that issue is.
But isn't there a third option too, that this is a bill where a particular industry is getting treatment that another industry might not? They're getting an advance go ahead from the legislature, a policy decision before the state officials that oversee the safety of this kind of project make a decision?
I don't see it that way, unless the two of you.
I think one of the issues.
Some people apparently do, though. That's why I'm asking.
I think when we take a look, the legislature in licensing Energy Solutions, or going back in time to their previous corporate names that they've had over time, I think the one thing is that you have to look at is we as a legislature made the decision that all of that licensure would go through us to begin with, and we would have total control, where we don't have that kind of control over a number of other industries.
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody else is prepared to handle it, given that preferential treatment
No,
to
we
it.
haven't. So, any comments, Senator Hill?
I was going to echo what was said, but it's one of the most highly regulated industries or companies in the entire state. And for it to go any other way, I don't know how it works. We've highly regulated this industry, and I don't know that we have treated them. if other industries are raising their hands saying regulate us like you regulate energy solutions, I haven't seen that hand go up. But we haven't. I mean, we've called for a study. If the study comes back and says horrible things, this won't go anywhere. So I don't know how else to do this, right?
Yeah. That's,
It's the chicken and the egg issue.
Yeah.
yeah. And
You get the information that you need to make good policy.
so,
People always raise the issue of whether Utah's going to get a reputation as a dumping ground, or whether that's going to harm tourism. Can you speak to that?
I thought Senator Bramble did a good job today, and he's been around 18 years, one of the more senior senators, and he says it hasn't happened in 18 years. So I suppose the proof is in the we've got 18 years of experience. I don't think that's happened.
May I? I think an answer to that question is, I remember as a kid, Kennecott Copper was, that was going to ruin us. We're going under because of it. Energy Solutions, what we're doing to the lake. I mean, this just keeps coming all the time. I do think one thing, it may sell print. However,
If you could figure out a way to do that.
However, also look on the other side at why are people coming to Utah, and it doesn't. They don't align. The reasons that I've been preached my whole life, or not preached, but I've heard, they've kind of built. They had momentum at times, and then they kind of go away. But why are people moving here? It doesn't seem to align with those negatives.
And any other comments? I think the floor debate was very good, and one of the things I heard on the floor debate was that it may have been Senator Thatcher that talked about it, is that technology continues to change. And the things we thought were not harmful a while ago, we determined maybe are, and we have a new way of disposing of those materials. And I think as technology continues to advance, none of us would think about putting Class A waste hopefully in a landfill, and yet before the technology was there, probably some of it ended up there, along with medical waste. And I think the fact that we're being responsible with it, I think is a real positive thing. And so I think we sometimes forget about the responsibility and that effort of it, that we're actually trying to dispose of it in a very responsible way. And that gets lost sometimes in the rhetoric. So anyway, other comments on it?
Could we talk a little bit about the tax
I was
modernization?
going to say Medicaid.
I could.
You want to discuss that again?
The tax, yes.
Yeah.
Senator Davis would like to talk about that, so go ahead.
The current version of Medicaid expansion. Well, we saw Medicaid dealt with very quickly, but here it is, the halfway point, literally, of the session, and there's no bill. There's no specifics out for public discussion other than some very broad concepts. And now we're hearing that the governor's number, is 1.75% number for this, to drop the sales tax rate down to, by broadening the base that much, would require $100 billion to be taxed that isn't taxed now. Is that something you can do by the end of the session? And how close are you going to get to it?
I won't give you my Hail Mary quote again, but I will say that I think we've been consistent in the fact that we've said that we understand there's a problem, and we also understand that the solution is difficult. And there's really smart people working on it, and they're doing the best they can, and I think as we have information, we'll give it to you. And the House is taking the lead on it, and it'll probably come through the House. So, but we're working on it hard. I know we've got good people doing it, but I think you're right. We've done a whole bunch of stuff in previous years in the last weeks of the session. It's like those last 2 weeks are like years to many people. There's a lot that happens. Little sleep that happens, but a lot that happens.
It'd be my hope that as we broaden the base, so to speak, that we get a good input from the public on doing that. And it's my hope that this issue really does proceed into the interim session so that we can further discuss it and have the public involved on why and where we're headed in this process. That would be my hope.
So to what degree are you being lobbied by the medical industry, the legal industry, the real estate industry to keep hands off taxing those services?
I've not been lobbied by them, but I do think that we have a fairly broad base of representation inside the legislature, and I think each of them are looking at their own industries, whatever industry it may be. Whether it's, I don't see Senator Vickers here, pharmaceutical, medical, manufacturing, trucking. All the different industries are being looked at, and I think there's a lot of good discussion going on. But I haven't been lobbied. Have you?
I haven't, well, excuse me, I
No,
haven't
go
seen,
ahead.
I haven't had, no one's talked to me about it. I think they're all kind of asking the same questions you're asking.
I think they're at the door waiting though when they
What's
find out
going
what's
on?
there. They'll be in the
The only lobbying I've had has actually come from constituents who basically have said, don't tax my haircut. That's
I have heard that too.
And I was going to say, echo this. So there's been articles that this is in, this is out. All I'm going to say is those articles are ahead of any decisions that have been made.
Yeah.
The everything's still on the table and being
Yeah,
looked
very
at and
much
worked
so.
at. And the law, I haven't been lobbied by any lobbyists. I've gotten emails from constituents. What are you guys thinking? But other than that, it's just been this blanket. Don't tax services, and my response is always, we already tax them.
I'm
Well,
just
that
hoping.
one.
Like I said, I'm hoping that we can get this
Tax-
into the interim
Yeah.
and not do if you will, a knee jerk in the next 3 weeks to pass something without the public totally involved in it.
So if you haven't heard, Speaker Wilson has been sick, so he wasn't here yesterday. So I think that's probably not news, but it's challenging in these
Slows things
45-day period of times when you get ill. So
Especially when you live in an incubator.
yeah, or a fishbowl, one of the two. What do you call it?
I'm sorry, to Senator Davis's point that this needs time to be discussed, and again, midway through the session, there's nothing to discuss. Everyone's waiting to hear, including the public. Is this something why shouldn't this go to interim at this point and be heard in a more orderly fashion, so all the industries can come up and make their case, so the public can come up and make their case?
Go
Can I
ahead.
just say,
Yeah.
my response to that is, this is only my third session in legislature. I have heard about sales tax reform, broadening the base, expanding into more services, the whole time I've been here. So as far as this being fast, in my perspective, until you dump a bill on the table, it's still being worked on. But I have heard conversation about this. I was part of the tax reform work group last year. So not preceding this session, but prior. And we talked, that was like 95% of our conversations in that meeting. So this is something that's been discussed, talked about. Even when we bring it up in caucus, some members of our body, I feel like, are kind of like, oh, we've seen this script before. and so this isn't a new concept. It's not a new thing. It's just maybe we're getting closer to something tangible in the form of a bill that people can actually look at.
And that'll be part of the debate. There'll be some that will say, and there is an urgency to do it, and there'll be some that say, let's wait, and that'll be decided upon. If we feel comfortable and feel like we've got good answers and feel like we've got a good path forward, we'll probably try to move forward.
I don't make a lot of guarantees here, but I guarantee you whatever bill comes out will not be the one that will pass. This will be a terrific level of discussion that we'll go through.
It will be refined in what we've talked about before.
When do we need to see a bill in order to make it through the process in the kind of fashion you'd like to see?
Usually a House bill and a Senate bill, they all have to pass by the Monday. Generally speaking, we run them all or as many as we can, the Monday or the last week of the session. So you'd have to see it probably to get a committee hearing the second to last week of the session sometime. Okay.
So we're getting close to
Yeah, 2
having to
weeks.
drop dead on it.
Except it could happen up to like 48 hours before.
But is that the way you want to pass major tax reform?
No, I don't think so.
No. Okay. So anyway, we've got we'll take a couple more questions that we had. Anything online? I hope I haven't ignored the online. Okay. All right.
Nobody's listening.
Any burning questions? Senator Vickers here. We need a good one for Senator Vickers, and then we can go. Anything?
Sales tax and pharmaceuticals.
There's challenge in healthcare.
Is an excise tax more appropriate for healthcare than a straight
Yeah,
up
it probably
sales
is.
tax?
You know, it's a challenge. You know, and there's always on paper it looks really good, and then in the practical sense it's difficult. Pharmacy just happens to be one of those categories, and I'm not arguing for or against. I'm just kind of pointing out what the realities are. So when you come into the pharmacy, you give me your prescription card, your health insurance card, and when I fill that prescription, you know, it tells me what the copay is, and you know, within a fraction of a second, it transmits to a PBM, and it tells me, okay, charge the patient $10, and you're going to be paid $15 in, you know, anywhere from 25 to 45 days. Well, that usually happens. Although on the back end, sometimes it doesn't turn into $15; it turns into something less. And so, do I charge you tax on the $10? Do I charge you tax on 25? Or do I charge you tax on 25 less something? You know, there's some challenges there. There's some,
Yeah.
So an excise tax probably does make more sense on, you know, something like that. Also, the challenge there too is, and let's say that you have a real expensive prescription. It might be $1,000 or $5,000 if you're doing a specialty drug or something like that. Well, that $10 copay or maybe even a $50 copay just turned into a couple $100. That's sticker shock. And guess who gets to be the bad guy? That's me telling you how much it costs. So,
Well, on healthcare also, there's Medicare and
Yeah.
Medicaid as part of that. And so there's a lot of
Yeah.
other expenses in there that I think looking at healthcare may be,
if you're
in
gonna,
my estimation, is probably the one exemption that we need to get.
So we know there's a problem. The fix is difficult. Okay, but we're working on it.
What about the effect of the numbers on a tax cut? That's a big part of this to get that rate lower in the governor's plan, although I know leadership's been looking at an income tax cut being preferred, but with Senator Stevenson reporting that revenues, income tax revenues are down about $300 million or so, does that make the likelihood of a tax cut less so?
I just saw Brian walk in. I'm more concerned about the policy. If it is a broad enough base and we do a good enough job, I think we can afford a tax cut. But I think we need to focus on the policy first and make sure we get the policy right, and find out how broad the tax cut is, the broad the tax base is, and then I think the cut will be talked about. I think until that happens, I'm not sure. Okay.
Lisa, I think too, you know, when we talked yesterday, I think we need to be careful. I agree, our revenues are down. We've seen a real slowing, and I think the question is are we seeing the slowing, is that a trend, or is it a behavior change because of something that the federal government did? If it's behavior, then, you know, we'll eventually get it fixed, but our problem is we have a 45-day session. We have to have everything solved and a balanced budget by the end of the session. And we may not know whether that behavior change, what type of behavior change it was until the middle of April.
And we're
That's the
wrapping
issue
up
we're dealing with.
we're wrapping up our appropriations subcommittees now and really getting a view on what are the needs of the state that really need to be taken care of. And those are the issues that have to go along with this.
And one more time, we're talking about estimating or budgeting for starting July 1 and going until June 30th of 2020. So we're really almost 18 months out. And so that's the problem, is we're trying to estimate what the future may be. And that's sometimes a difficult thing to project. So,
Well, we do know for a fact collections have slowed in December and January.
so with that, I think we're going to conclude. So,
President,
yes, go
actually, I have
ahead.
a couple questions coming from the.
Oh, there we go. Maybe I kind of got them going. So go
Yeah.
ahead.
They asked
Glad to
about
see we have a couple of viewers.
funding for the Hatch Center.
I think that'll be part of the discussion in the
You know,
list.
that's, we've got a long list of things, and some of them, in reality, we haven't even thought about until the committees finish their work.
Yeah, and I just say that Senator Hatch has been a great public servant. Whether we fund that or not, I hope people don't forget that I don't think Utah will have another president pro tem in my lifetime. And that's a pretty big deal, and he's put in a lot of public service, and hopefully even if we don't agree with him, we're appreciative of that service. Okay? Anything else?
How tax issues may impact the manufacturers.
Again, at least, Dan, you want to talk about it? Inputs?
Yes, I mean, one of the policy or principles we're trying to support in any tax reform we propose or pursue is that keeping business inputs, which manufacturing would typically, the inputs into manufacturing, we would try to keep those untaxed and just tax, if it's a consumption tax or a sales tax, just tax end users. And so, where manufacturing fits within that chain would kind of dictate how they fall out. We're certainly not proposing a manufacturing tax.
Yes. So. Jane, any final comments or Senator?
It's a pleasure to be here and to comment.
Good to have you with us. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.